Hi folks, my name's Ian. I'm from Giant Training. I'm a Wacom ambassador and also an Adobe community professional. In Giant Training, we deliver a wide range of courses to help photographers, designers, video editors, and animators get the most out of the Adobe creative software. Today, we're going to show you just how easy it is to get into and use Adobe Premiere Pro. We have quite a few things to cover in this session, so let's jump in. When you first open up Premiere Pro, you're presented with the home screen. The home screen shows you your most recent files and any of the documents that you've currently worked on. But when you're getting started, what we need to do is we need to start creating new projects. This home screen also has an amazing learning facility built directly into it. So when you finish this session, please open up Premiere Pro, click on the Learning tab, and check out some of the built-in tutorials ready for you guys to use. For now, what we're going to do is we're going to create ourselves a new project. When we go to create a new project, we need to give it a name and a location. For this project, I'm going to call it Photography Show Training. I'm going to save it in the default folder for Premiere Pro, and I'm going to leave, at the minute, the settings as they are. There's a whole range of different settings that we can play with, but I'm just going to press the OK button. When we create a new project, one of the first things you'll notice when Premiere opens up is the screen looks slightly different from what you would have within Photoshop or Lightroom. The workspaces are at the top. You can jump between each workspace, and when you do, it will change the look and feel of Premiere, moving the appropriate panels and opening the appropriate windows that you need. All of the windows and panels that you need are all contained under the window menu, same as what it would be for Photoshop. Each of the workspaces will move the panels around the screen to make things easier for you whenever you want to adjust some color, whenever you want to add in some effects, when you want to enhance audio or add in audio that comes from Adobe stock, if you need to add in some graphics, or if you want to access your own Adobe CC libraries. The Learning Workspace is a great way to start learning Adobe Premiere Pro. There are plenty of tutorials built in, plus also online. Hopefully today in this session, we'll take you through most of those. For now, we're going to jump into the editing panel, and we're going to start importing some content. So what we have is the source panel, which is your input. Whenever you bring projects and videos and clips in, when we import the media, we can then see those in the source panel. Whenever we add them to a timeline and to a sequence, we can then see how that's going to output into the program window. So we really have an input and an output for source and program. In the bottom section of my screen, I have the import media, which is our project panel. I have a timeline where we'll see our sequences and our video clips and photos all coming along a timeline. We have our audio output, so we can see how loud our audio is going to be when we're playing our video clips and if it needs to be adjusted. And hidden here is the tools. You'll notice that there's a lot less tools than what you would be using within Photoshop or even within Lightroom. Okay, so let's import some videos and some photos into Premiere. To do that, in this bottom corner, we have our project panel, and there's a little arrow just to the right hand side. If I click on that, you can see that I have a media browser. Both of these will allow me to import files and video clips and photos directly here into the project panel. Before I do that, I'm just going to move these panels around slightly. I'm going to give this area where it says project panel a little bit more space. And as I do, you can see other panels just slightly moving, shrinking, so I can position more space for the media within the project panel. One of the easiest ways to import media is simply to double click within this area. It opens up your Finder window and allows you to select the video content that you want to bring in and allows you to import that media straight away. It's one of the easiest ways to bring content straight into Premiere Pro. The media browser allows you to navigate through your hard disk or your server till you can find the clips that you need. You can also scrub through the clips so you can see exactly which video you want to bring. For now, we're going to stay just on the project panel. At the bottom of the project panel, we have our list view, our icon view, which allows us to scrub through the videos that we've imported. The freeform view within the project panel allows us to move the content around so we can organize it. But in this current editing workspace, it's a little bit small of a window. So I'm going to move to the assembly. The assembly workspace just allows me then to see a larger space, a larger area that we can move the content around until we get positioned so we know which clip we want to start and which one's going to come next. We can select multiple clips and move them, and from here we can actually make new sequences, which we'll come to shortly. I'm going to move back to just the list view. I'm still in the assembly workspace, and from here I'm going to double click and I'm going to bring in some more content. As you can see, when I'm in the assembly view, I get a lot more information. So I can see the start, the end, the duration, the viewpoint. And if I just scroll across, I have a lot more information hidden within this panel. If I want to expand this panel out further so I can see all of the content, I can press the tilde key on the keyboard and it'll expand this panel out so that I can see it. Pressing the tilde key again brings the panel back down. If I'm in the editing workspace, any panel where my cursor is sitting over the top of, if I press the tilde key, it will expand each of those panels. By pressing the tilde key a second time, it brings the panel back down to the size. That's a really handy tip whenever you're using Premiere Pro or even After Effects. Just pressing the tilde key will allow that panel just to expand out so you can see the video information in more detail, or you can see your timeline, or each of the input or the output, the source of the program windows, whenever you're going to play parts of the video to help you edit. The project panel is becoming a little bit messy as it's got lots of video clips in and it makes it slightly harder to see where everything is. If I move into the icon view, you can see that I can scrub across as mentioned, but again, I've got a small window and a small panel. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to come down and I'm going to add in what's called a new bin. When I added a new bin, I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it video clips. When I call it video clips, press the enter key. I can then move some of these clips directly into this bin. It's a bit strange calling it a bin because normally when you think of a bin, you're deleting things. Within Premiere, what we're doing is we're organizing them into different bins, different folders. I'm just going to grab the clips and move them all into the video. I'm going to create a new bin. So while I've got the screen open, I'm going to create a new bin. I'm going to call this one photos so that I can keep each of the items that I bring in organized. If I double click on photos, it opens up the photo bin. If I double click again, it will allow me to go out and import some photos that I'm going to use for this tutorial. When I press the tilde key again, this project area looks very busy. You can see a small folder icon with an arrow pointing upwards, which will take me out of the photos and back to the main project panel. I can double click to go into video clips and come back out, double click to go into photos and back out. Very easy to organize your work, very easy so you can zoom in, zoom out. You can change it back to list view, icon view, or we can go into the freeform view. Freeform view, as I say, is always better to have it so that you're in full screen by pressing the tilde key. For now, I'm going to leave it in the list view. I'm also going to play with the icon view so that we can jump in and out and see the videos and start making sequences. So before we go and create some sequences, I want to show you just how the panels work and how you can move things around the screen. I'm going to open up the video clips. I'm going to pick one of the video clips and load it into the source. So the source, what I would call the source, is the input and the program is the output. So once we open up and double click on any clip within the project panel, it loads it into the source panel. From here, we can scrub across and we can look at the clip. We can play the clip.
Introduce Scott Belsky, our Chief Product Officer.
We can scrub forward. We can go backwards. And anytime we double click on a clip in the project panel, it loads it into the source. It will only come into the program panel once we build the sequence and we play the sequence. The sequence will have several clips added together, one after each other, with titles, with music, everything happening down here on the timeline, then appears in the program. If we look through the video clips, we can find a clip that we want to edit. We can then choose to either bring the entire clip down into the timeline, or we can choose just to bring the video or only the audio. The panels themselves, as you can see at the top, we have effect controls, metadata, audio clip mixer, and then into effects. If you wanted to move these panels around, you can grab the names, and as you move them around, it's a little bit different than Photoshop. So what's happening now is it's going to tag this panel on to the end so that it becomes its own panel. The panels stay locked together in Premiere. They don't float on screen like you would have them in Photoshop and InDesign and other Adobe applications. They stay locked on the screen. So as you move a panel around, you can decide where you want to position that panel. So you can put it to the top of the program panel, or you can bring it in so that it's at the side, or you can bring it in so it goes to the bottom. So you get to move these things around until your screen is more positioned as to how you want it. I'm going to leave the effects panel here. I'm just going to move this over, and I have effect controls that I'm going to move in with it, and I'm also going to move the audio into the side as well. So once you've got more panels than what you can see within your display, there's a little double arrow that appears in the corner. By clicking that, it allows you to see the rest of the panels. Similar to what we had here in the project panel, it was smaller. If I click, you can see there's lots more panels that we can open up. If I click the arrow, I can go to effect controls, I can go to effects, I can jump between them. Audio clip mixer. So I'm going to take the audio clip mixer and pop it back over so that it joins in with the metadata and source. So this source panel can actually give us a lot of details. It tells us how long the clip is. This clip is 1 minute. If I go and take another clip, you can see this one's only 11 seconds, nearly 12 seconds long. There's several ways to create a new sequence. If I use the new item button at the bottom of the project panel, I have sequence. I also have a range of other options that I can choose on when I want to create different types of content. If I choose new sequence, you can see there's a range of presets that we can use. We can give our sequence a name. Another easier way to do a sequence and create something from your video clips is once you find the clip that you want to start with or you want to use, if we were to right click, we can actually come in and we can create a new sequence from clip. This will take the clip that we have at the minute, load it into our source, and we'll make a sequence along the timeline and load the clip and the audio directly in. If I go into the freeform view, I can open up my clips, I can see the clips, and I can organize them into the order that I want. So by simply dragging the clips around, I can see which one I want to start with and how I want to manipulate these clips into different sequences. And I'm going to start off with this clip, the shoes walking. This is one coming in, this will be one at the end. And what I can do is I can move through the clips by scrubbing over the top of them, and I can stack them up on top of each other so I can get a nice timeline view as to how I want my clips to be. So I'm going to have these guys coming in this order, and then I'll put this at the end. By organizing them here in the free form view, I can select the clips, I can right click, and I can say new sequence from clip. By having them all selected in this order, when I click this, it now gives me all of the clips nicely laid out one after each other along the timeline. If I use the icon view or the list view, I can load each of the clips into the source panel, and I can decide whether I want the entire clip to come down or if I want to make some edits to the clip first before bringing it down to the timeline. I can also decide if I only want the video or the audio to come down. That's simply by dragging the entire clip down onto the timeline, and you can see it's bringing both the audio and the video onto different layers. We have video layers and we have audio layers that appear on this timeline. Okay, for the next section, what I'm going to show you is timeline editing. As you notice so far, I haven't used any of the tools down in the tool panel. So what I can actually do here is I can scrub along, I can find the different clips that I've got here along the timeline, and I can decide I want to edit these clips. So if I come across and I find there's a clip that I want to take a section off, so I think this one's just slightly too long and I want to cut it down, then one of the easiest ways that I can control this is along the timeline itself. So before I start editing the timeline and moving along each of these little clips that we've got here, what I want to show you is just how we can zoom in and make this timeline look a little bit bigger. You'll notice at the bottom and on the right hand side, there's a series of circles. These circles allow us to move to the left and expand in the timeline, or move to the right and it shrinks the timeline so I can see more time as it goes along. The same works for the right hand side. If I shrink it down, then it starts opening up the timeline so that I can see exactly what's on that layer. It lets me visually see what each of these clips are so that I have a better understanding as to how I'm going to edit each of the clips as it comes along. So that's exactly where I want this part of the clip to stop. I no longer want the end of this clip, and I can shift click on both the video and the audio and drag them in at the same time. Now the audio has stopped exactly at the end of the video clip where we wanted it. But notice we now have a gap. This gap literally is no video content until the next section. The easiest way to get rid of this gap is if we right click and say ripple delete. This will close the gap both on the audio and video layers within the timeline. On this clip, as I scrub along, I'd like it to stop here at the max banner. Again, I can take the audio and the video, I can drag it in, so I'm editing and I'm cutting this part of the timeline away. If I right click, I can say ripple delete, so it moves the rest of the video clips up against the first clip. For this next section, what we're going to do is import some audio and have some background music just playing in behind below each of these clips that we've got. We're going to control the volume so that it's playing nicely when there's no talking, but when we do start talking in the clips, that the volume of the background music just drops so it's quieter in the background. So within the audio project folder, I've imported several different clips. I open up the intro wave by double clicking on it and loading it into the source. If I just play, you'll hear the music. So that's quite a nice little clip. Now, what I will say is we do have effect controls and we do have an audio mixer clip, which both come into play whenever we're using sound and adding sound to our clips and our sequences. So I like this sound and I'm going to drag it down from the source down onto audio track 3. I'm just going to increase audio track 3 so I can see the timeline a little bit better. I would like this to stop at the end of the feet clip. It's just walking in. So now what we have basically is an audio track which plays and stops. But there's quite a hard stop. It just stops dramatically at the end of this clip. What I'd like to do is to fade it in. So I'm just going to increase the height of this channel, this track, so I can see there's a little line that runs across here. And while I have the audio track selected, I can go to my effect controls and I can start adding in keyframes to control when the audio stops and when the audio fades or when the audio increases. And by using keyframes, we can create quite a lot of animation and movement within Adobe Premiere Pro. So for this sequence and for this clip, as the audio starts to come to the end of this first clip, I'm going to add in a keyframe. I'm going to move along the timeline, and just before the end of the clip, I'm going to add in another keyframe. So these 2 points in time represent the very end of the clip, where I want the volume to be 0, so you can't hear it, and just before where I want the volume to start dropping down. Now, if you can look carefully here within the actual timeline, you can see those markers, those keyframes appearing here on the panel. So what I can actually do is grab them here and drag them down. If I drag them down, I can literally mute that audio. I can move them around and decide where I want the audio to fade and when I want it to drop. And if I hold down the command key or control key on a PC, I can add in extra keyframes directly here on the layer. When I click on the graphics workspace, it loads in our essential graphics. We also notice that all the panels have moved around, but this panel's come in on the side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this template straight onto my screen and onto my timeline. You'll notice when it comes onto the timeline, it's quite small, it's quite thin. So I can widen this along the timeline, increase the time that it's going to stay on screen, just so I can get a better understanding of what it's doing. So you can see circles came through, the text sits on the screen. I'm going to move it right to the start of my project. Now, whenever I come into this project and into this title, if I actually click on it, this loads into the Essential Graphics panel. And what I can do is I can change the text, I can change the font. Just by clicking in each of these, you've got full control over the color, the stroke, the fill, the font, the size. I'm going to change the text just simply by double clicking on this text in the Essential Graphics. It now takes you to your type tool that I can come in, and I've got the text selected, and I'm going to change this text. And just click now using the type tool, select the text and change it. Video editing made easy. Let's keep that capital M and keep this as a capital E. I'm going to go back just to my main selection tool, so I'm no longer editing the text. And you can see now, if I wanted to change the color, I can come down and change the fill. Let's change it to there. If you notice this Essential Graphics panel, it covers an awful lot. There's an awful lot of different options which you can control and you can change. So I'm going to add in a video transition. I'm just going to use cross dissolve. I'm going to drag cross dissolve down and onto this part of the media. Now if I just expand up, you'll notice you can see cross dissolve here. And if I just let the play head run through, you can see how it just dissolves and comes from one clip into the next. So cross dissolve is just one of the more popular ones. Dip to black, dip to white just allows you to do exactly what it says in the tin. I'm going to dip to a black frame. So as I come to here, it dips to black before it brings it into the next clip. And what we can do, it can be just as simple as going to the file, export media. The file export media will open up a media panel or export panel, and it will allow us to make some settings and change some formats. So we can choose the format of the video we want to send out. So there's lots of different presets here to make things a lot easier for you. We click where it says output name and location. If we move further on down the screen, we can then decide whether we want to output just the video or just the audio, and we can change any of the settings that we need to. At the bottom of the screen for the export settings, we have Q or export. Export will take the file and do exactly what it says. It will export it straight out for you. Q will add it to what's called Adobe Media Encoder queue, and it'll allow you to stack up several sequences so you can keep working within Premiere while your sequences are rendering and compiling through the media queue. So I'm just going to press export. So once that completes, I can then jump out to my Finder window and I can see the clip and the sequence which was just exported out.